and none has the authority to interfere in these functions of the nation. Definitely. Then we speak about socialism. Very recently, if you know, a private member has presented a bill, one Mr. Sinha, if I'm not wrong, from the, he's a RSS ideologue, BJP Rajya Sabha member. He has presented a private member bill stating that this word socialism be deleted from the constitution. This word socialism and many other such words were brought in the Constitution of India by the amendment made in 1976 during the emergency. What is the relevance of the word socialism? What kind of value is socialism? And why is this word socialism required in India or Indian constitution? One can speak volumes on this. Very briefly, what I feel is that socialism speaks about socialism. Actually, why socialism is a core value? The very reason which I find is that it speaks about equality between various segments of the society. The Indian society is fragmented. Everybody knows this, and none will deny that there are various issues on which Indian society can be broken up. It can be on the basis of religion, it can be on the basis of caste, it can be on the basis of food, it can be on the basis of the kind of work which we are doing, it can be on various other basis. The Indian society can be fragmented. And socialism speaks about equality, equal opportunity of this equal development is ensured in the socialistic form of governance or the form of nation. Secularism is one thing which is really of core importance in India, and it is also a very, very debatable issue. See, these issues need to be understood. Very recently, I am speaking about a statement which was given by a politician hailing from Madhya Pradesh, presently the in charge of affairs of West Bengal, a BJP member. He has stated that the scheme of constitutional provision under Article 30, which makes the provision of certain constitutional, I must say, it is fundamental freedom for the religious minority. It speaks about the right of the religious minorities to establish educational institution of their choice and to administer the way they want to. He has stated that this leads to discrimination, and it is actually injustice to the majority community of the nation. It's a very, it may sound, the argument may sound to few as, yeah, that is a correct. Why there should be certain special provisions for one segment of the society? Why can't the entire society receive the same kind of rights? Why there are special rights for the religious minorities? See, you do not look at from the angle of religion for a few minutes. What I would say is, we are talking about equality, Article 14 of the Constitution of India. Just imagine a race in which there are 10 participants and one participant happens to be a person who doesn't have eyes. Both the eyes are missing, God did not give. And there are two people who do not have both the limbs. They are standing with Baisakhi or crutch. And there's one person who is having one leg and one leg is missing. He's standing there with an artificial limb. And the whistle blows and they all have to run for 200 meters. The one who will win will get shelter, will get food, will get water. And the other who lose. Hello?
Hello. Yes, sir.
I found there was some. So, so that gentleman who is going to win the race will get these privileges and the others will not. Now, what do you feel? What are the chances of a person without eyes reaching the end point? What are the chances of a person with both the limbs missing reaching the end point of the race, reaching their first, winning the race? And what are the chances of that person who has got artificial limb? Do you think that he will win the race? If you feel that these people can win the race, then I don't have an argument. I am speechless. I cannot argue any further. Argument can be replied by way of argument. There cannot be a misargument or a wrong argument. This was the situation prevailing in the nation in 1947 when the nation got freedom. There were demands within the nation which were saying that Hindus and Muslims cannot live together. So a two-nation theory was propounded, not by those who were fighting for freedom. It was propounded by those organizations which call themselves as cultural organizations. I don't find the need to name them. We are all literates and educated. We know which organizations are those, and we all know that in 1927, 1926, which was that organization which raised this demand for the very first time. Then the Muslim League took it up and started saying that yes, we want a separate nation for the Muslims. And then we find that when suddenly in COVID-19, we say that in the nation actually a particular religious sect, which was a congregation which gathered in one mosque or in a building, religious building, and they were hearing to the various speeches of their religious leaders. And they suddenly came out. There were some foreigners in that congregation. Congregation could have been the followers of any religion for that instance. And since the day COVID started, we find that various kind of social, political, and some foreign president also came to the country, and there was a big delegation, big gathering in a stadium. And then we said namaste to that gentleman. So all those things have happened in the very recent memory. And we find that there were talks in the media, there were debates in the media which were it is they who are primarily responsible for spreading of corona in the nation. When we say this, don't you think that we are acknowledging that there is lack of knowledge, lack of education? It is echoing, my voice is echoing. Hello?
Hello. It's okay, sir, now. It's clear.
I think some participants have switched on their mics, and because of this is happening. I will request to all the participants to kindly switch off their mics. So what I was trying to say at this juncture, by giving this very relevant and very debatable example, and I request you to take it in the correct sense. I'm not placing allegation upon any community. I'm just mentioning the need of education for these religious minorities. We all acknowledge that there is lack of modern education in the minority communities. Religious education is being imparted to the Muslim community by ways of madrasas. But we know that modern education is lacking. And for that instance, if you allow me to say this, there are various pathshalas or Vedic pathshalas or religious pathshalas which are there in India, wherein Hindus are going and studying. The seminaries of the Christian priests, they too impart religious knowledge. What about the education, modern education? Is that being imparted in these religious schools? If the answer is yes, then again, I cannot enter into the debate. But I know that the answer is not yes. Lack of modern education is much more prevailing in the religious minorities. And it was looking at those circumstances in which the nation got its freedom, that the framers of the constitution said that do not feel afraid. You all are going to get absolute freedom and you will be treated at equality. And since you are lagging behind, we will give you special privileges. Can there be a debate on this issue that there is lack of modern education? During COVID-19, one of my very good friend called me up and stated that the air conditioner in my house is not working properly. And he was not in Bhopal, he was there in some other city, Indore. He called me up that, can you help me out? The AC at my house is not working. I said, yes, I will see to it. I have a few friends there. One of my client is there and I'll ask him, can he arrange for a technician who can come and see your AC? He said, yeah, I have one request. I said, what is that? He said, he should not be a Muslim. And I was shocked to hear this. Manika, why? What is the reason for that? He said that it is actually corona is spread more in the Muslim community and they stay in very unhygienic and in a very poor state. See, nobody wants to live in unhygienic state. We know the mechanics, the panchar jodne walas, the motor mechanics, and the various other small petty jobs which are being taken up mostly by Muslims. We have very strongly opposed census based on caste and religion. There has been debate on that. The economic condition, the social condition, I don't know why, but this census was being done and probably various kinds of hindrances were raised in that. And what I am saying now has been reported in the media very widely. So at one place, if you say that this is the plight, this is the situation prevailing in the minority community, especially the Muslim community, then all the more my argument gets stronger. Special privileges for them are very much required. Institutions wherein they can impart education to people belonging to their community, modern education, good education, which is much more required, because if one particular community lags behind, ultimately it is going to affect the GDP of the country. The country will not progress. If we want that the country should progress, the basic aim is to make every person, every individual, every citizen of the nation should develop. Otherwise, the result of development, progress will not be visible. So therefore, when we say that there has to be secularism and the secular values, why they are required more in India. So I say that for peace in the nation, for development of the nation, and for many such reasons, I feel that secularism is the core value of Indian Constitution and it should remain. None should try to give away with this core value of Indian Constitution. Democracy, in spite of all its shortcomings, in the modern times has proved to be the best system of governance in the world. There has been a fight between autocrats and the democrats. In democracy, everywhere we have seen that people who have got intentions. See, democracy has always got fight with such people, which is in Hindi known as Vyakti Puja. Democracy is actually governance by a group of people, which we call a political party, whom the public at large elects by way of franchise, exercising their franchise. The kind of democracy which is there in India, we find that a party which may not receive majority of the votes polled. The present government came into existence with a complete majority, but the total votes which were polled, the present regime received 32% of that vote. And it has always been there. I am not speaking about the present government, I am speaking about all the past governments. Often it is less than 50% of the total votes which have been polled. But then this is the way democracy of India we have established. And I am a strong believer that democracy has proved to be the democracy in the present form has proved to be the best kind of governance in the nation. Madam Indira Gandhi, Mrs. Indira Gandhi was there, and at times it was said that Indira is India and India is Indira. We found that she acquired so much of power that she had the courage to impose emergency in the nation, and all the fundamental rights were suspended. And till today, it is known as Black Day in the democracy of India. It was not good what had happened. Everybody criticizes. So democracy and democratic values, in spite of all the complaints which we people may have, we can debate on this for days together. But in short, what I would say is that it is more of belief. Therefore, I say that it's a value which is incorporated in the Constitution, and values are not only to be believed and followed, values are something on which we need to have faith. And faith is something which is very personal. I have faith in the Constitution of India. I have faith in the value called democracy. Now I have it means I have it. Why I have it? There can be hundreds of reasons. But then one cannot say, ki, leave this value. For me wanting to leave this value, there has to be an alternative before me. So if you say that leave this value, and this is another form of governance which is time tested, and time tested for a country like India. See, for fighting with COVID, what has happened is we are comparing ourselves to USA. We are comparing ourselves with Britain, and the European nations are getting we are getting very happy that the number of deaths in India is less than the number of deaths there in USA. I am of the opinion that no, this is not correct. We in the southern part of Asia must compare ourselves with Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, the socio-economic conditions, the kind of health, the kind of body structure, the kind of immunity which is there in these 4-5 nations are much similar. We are similar in caste and creed. We are of the same genetic pool. And we find that we are not performing better than even Pakistan, so far as COVID management is considered. There is no harm in criticizing your own self and wanting to improve your performance. And I find that it is a healthy way to test yourself rather than dream that and live in illusions. It is not that we are trying to demotivate ourselves. No. If someone feels that by saying this we are demotivating ourselves, then certainly we require some kind of psychological treatment. A good human being who wants to develop, who wants to excel in life, will always keep analyzing himself. आईने के सामने बैठेगा वो हमेशा और खुद को दर्पण में देखेगा और परखेगा और ये जानने की कोशिश करेगा कि मैं सही तो हूं, और सही तो हूं जानने के लिए उसे खुद की तुलना करनी होगी. तो खुद की तुलना आप किससे करोगे? एक लंगड़े से आप कहोगे कि वो 2 पैर वालों से खुद की तुलना करे और खुद को जो है फिर वो डिप्रेशन में जाएगा. एक अपाहिज व्यक्ति अपनी तुलना जो है अगर 2 पैर वालों से करेगा तो वो फिर डिप्रेशन में जाएगा क्योंकि उसके पास 2 पैर नहीं है, उसमें कमी है. But then if he compares himself that no, now 2 legs have been provided to me and now I can compete, then probably he will gather strength. He will get encouragement and he will start moving. So therefore I speak about democracy as the core value of Indian Constitution. Republican character of Indian state. Much has been stated upon this. We are a republic, we are a confederation, we are a federation. Our form of governance is federal form of governance. In the times of COVID, again I find that federal structure of the nation is under great threat. I again question the authority of the union government imposing curfew or imposing lockdown in the entire nation. Now, why we find that the option of coming out of lockdown has been returned, or it has been stated that this is the responsibility of the states. The constitutional framework says that law and order are subject matter of state. It is a matter in the state list. The union government is there to mete out the threats to the nation from the external, from the other nations. Within the country, law and order, until unless the government does not impose Article 356 and President's rule, is a state subject. It has to be state specific, it has to be district specific. Now we find that after passage of more than 70 days, now the decision is there that these decisions will be taken by district level disaster management committees. And the disaster management committee at the national level is now passing these orders. What will happen to lockdown 5? What will be the norms, rules, regulations? What kind of lockdown is that going to be? Is now being decided by the disaster management committee, which is there at the national level. This was not there the first day when the lockdown was announced. I, being the student of law, I do not find anything wrong in analyzing what has happened. And I assure you that I am not a political person. I have to do nothing with politics. I will speak the same. Whosoever is there in power needs to be questioned. Questions to them who are in powers. Question cannot be put to them who are not in power, because taking the decision. History is going to test their decisions. Decisions are going to be written on the basis of what they say today. So therefore I say that when could this not be done, that an option could have been given to those people who are not at their homes, to ask them that you may reach your homes. Within 3 hours, there is going to be lockdown in the entire nation. There are many stories wherein students are held up in hostels. Laborers are there in their temporary shelters. They were there in their temporary shelters. Now trains which are supposed to reach Varanasi are reaching Orissa, and the trains which are supposed to reach Gujarat are reaching Bengal. The Indian Railways, which every day was carrying more than 1 crore passengers, with thousands of trains, passenger trains running on the railway tracks. We know that distributors are closed down. We know that godowns are closed. We know no transportation in the initial days was taking place. Almost no goods trains were running on the railway tracks. And then we find that no passenger trains are still running on the railway tracks. And an argument came that actually the trains are reaching wrong destinations because there is congestion on the railway tracks, and so they are taking a longer route. I completely disagree with such arguments. Now, even after 70 days, if we have failed to plan the coming days, and we know that every day more than 7,000 patients are being added. Bombay is already facing scarcity of beds. More than 50,000 patients are there in one big city called, I think I'm more than 25 or 30,000 today. I'm forgetting the figures. But then there is scarcity of hospitals there. So what have we prepared in the past 70 days? I don't know. But I have the right to analyze. So I am analyzing. And so I am speaking about the federal structure of the country. Federalism is something which is very core to the nation. And in times of COVID, how federalism becomes more important, you can now understand. 70 days ago, what was the understanding of the nation for deciding lockdown has changed. Now we know that lockdowns are being decided by the state governments. If you want to continue with lockdown, Punjab says that we are going to continue with lockdown, and Kerala says that we are opening up. And both are correct in their own spheres. Then we speak about justice. Now, certainly this is very much important. I, being a student of law, take the liberty to comment on what has happened in the past couple of years. None can be a judge in his own cause. This was the very basic, fundamental core of Indian justice, Indian judiciary, Indian justice dispensation system. We found that it was stated by none other but the then Chief Justice of India that the entire judiciary is under threat ये हमला है भारत की न्यायपालिका पर. When a lady made allegations upon none else but the Chief Justice of India. And what we find is that lady is back. I am speaking on a public forum, and I speak this with utmost responsibility. That lady is back into the service of Supreme Court. The then Chief Justice is now part of Member Parliament, Rajya Sabha nominated. Both are correct. None was punished. And then the inquiry committee, in spite of after the Vishakha guidelines that we have a law and it speaks about committees, and the inquiries are to be held by that committee for protecting the females from atrocities or exploitation at workplace. But then that bench was presided initially by the Chief Justice himself, Honorable Chief Justice, then Chief Justice. And then he said that I am sitting here, but I am not going to speak anything. You carry out with the proceedings. And then the lady did not get the opportunity to be represented by a lawyer. And then entire other things are history. I stand here to analyze what has happened. And I feel that something has diluted. And I speak against that dilution. When I see that the Supreme Court says that no, we are not going to speak on what is happening to the laborers, and stopping the laborers from running on the road is not within the purview of the Supreme Court, I was very sad. I was very sad. And I again became very happy yesterday when I found that after the letter by 15 eminent jurists, the Supreme Court ultimately took cognizance of the situation, suo motu cognizance, and then certain guidelines have been issued. This is for which the judiciary has been given independence in this nation, and it has got the fundamental responsibility to check and keep a balance between the two other organs of the democracy. And when it fails, then a person like those 15 people and me, one small person, I also gather courage to speak on it and to make them remember, as a citizen of India, it is my responsibility. If somebody is forgetting his or her duty, I am under obligation to make them remember. And by doing this, I am of the opinion that I am not committing any breach or any kind of what you say. So what I am saying is, I speak within that constitutional framework, and I remember what I can say and what I cannot. And I want all of you to speak when it is required most to speak. The fourth, कहते हैं कि the चौथा खंबा, they call it, the fourth pillar of democracy, the press. A free press is the free voice of the citizens of India. So that also is included when we speak about justice. Liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship. So while I was speaking about other values, I spoke on these also. Then I speak about equality of status and opportunity. I have spoken on that when I spoke about Article 14, and I gave the example of a person without limbs running in a race with people who are having both the legs. Fraternity, I have already spoken on. That is the ninth value. Human dignity. In the present scenario, present circumstances, what we are witnessing is that it is this human dignity which is being downplayed. Crores of people have been rendered jobless. 4.5 crore people rendered jobless in USA. Such a huge voice is being raised there. And just remember that those people there are getting, they get allowance if they are jobless. And in India, we don't have any such system of giving allowance to those people who are jobless. Factories are closed. I, Enos George Carlo, an advocate of standing of 24 years, tell you this very truly, that within last 70 days, I have not earned a single penny. I had my savings, so I am standing and my AC is working. Bijli ka bill this time has come 26,000 because none came to read the meter. And an electricity bill has come of 26,000. I am giving the example of myself. And I know that each one of you, when you will look towards your parents, if they are not in job, in private job, they have not received their salaries. In government job, they have received their salaries, but how many people in this country are in public employment? Most of us are in private employment, or we are self-entrepreneurs. Market is closed, court is closed, nothing is working. And here the dignity, human dignity is at stake. We find thousands of people on the street begging. Therefore, I say, science should have been employed in lockdown also. So I am not speaking about lockdown, I am speaking about the core values of the Constitution, trying to give you the examples prevailing around ourselves in the present time. So therefore I say that when a person is made to do which is below his dignity, he feels bad. When he is given food by throwing to him, he will always feel very bad. I am in a quarantine center and the food is being given to me by throwing it. Why? Because the person who is serving food, he doesn't have PPE kit. He doesn't have mask. So he is throwing the food to me. I don't think that he is mistaking, and I don't think that the people who are there in the quarantine centers are at mistake. They are not at fault. It is those who are at helm of all these. After 70 days, we are unable to make arrangements. So where we rightful to take the steps which we have taken, which they have taken on our behalf. So if it is not for our welfare, we have right to speak and we must speak. So we as lawyers, intellectuals, so-called intellectuals, I don't know whether I am or not, but I feel that I am at least knowledgeable to a better degree than the others. I understand. I have read these things so I can say and educate the others. Educate means I can give the information to others. Education again is something which I speak out of proud. The fine line between pride and proud. So proud is very bad and pride is very good. So certainly, feeling that to be my responsibility, I say this. So judiciary has to be independent. Then the fundamental rights and duties. And I really thank the organizers of this seminar, webinar, wherein they have spoken about the duties. So I have spoken about separation of power and the federalism already. So fundamental duties, what are those fundamental duties which were imparted by way of Article 51A, again in 1976. They speak that it is not only the people who are running the show, they give rights to the people. Actually, the way the rights have been granted in the Constitution of India, it is actually nothing to do with the public at large. Fundamental rights are given to the public at large against whom? Against the system, the government system. You can file a writ under Article 32 against the state. There cannot be a writ filed against Ninad sir, or there cannot be a writ against Shiva madam. There cannot be a writ against the Bhopal School of Social Sciences. Writ will always be filed against the state mechanisms, state machinery, if they do not function properly. Writ can be filed against the government, be it the state or local government or the union government. So it is actually, writ is a kind of check upon the government. If they are not functioning properly, writ is the instrument by which we can ensure and force them to function the way they are expected by the Constitution of India. The reciprocating duties which were imposed is the expectation of the government from the public at large. There is a thought process which criticizes the very concept of duties. They say that at times the government wants to forego its responsibilities by stating that the citizens are not following their duties. But I take a much balanced viewpoint and say that no, fundamental duties must be there so that the citizens behave in a responsible manner. Because we find that in our country, citizens often take law in their hands. Nobody gave the authority to the COVID patients or these running labours to get down on the railway platform and loot whatever is there. Howsoever hungry they may have been, this justification cannot be given that they were hungry, so they have entered into looting. There was a story wherein a mango thelawala was standing somewhere in Delhi, and that poor man's mangoes were looted by the crowd which was there. Every citizen of India is under fundamental duty not to get into such kind of acts under any kind of compulsion whatsoever. This is the fundamental responsibility of every citizen. So these core values are the first duty is that we must certainly have a feeling of great pride and gratitude towards that soil wherein we are living, earning our bread and butter and breathing every day. So respect the ideals, institutions, national flag and national anthem. To cherish and follow the noble ideas which inspired our national struggle for freedom. Certainly, we need to understand how we received freedom, the ways and means we received the freedom. What were those conflicts which were there between various ideologies who were moving towards a common goal, that was freedom of the nation. One ideology was of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. One ideology was of Bhagat Singh. One ideology was of Mahatma Gandhi. All of them wanted freedom. There were conflicts between them. Today we as students of Constitution need to understand what those conflicts were and ultimately how we received our freedom. And then we sat together and made this Constitution. To cherish and follow the noble ideas which inspired our national struggle, to uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India, to defend the country and render national service when called upon to do so. Now today, these are the times when the nation has called us, when it has been stated by the governance, the government, that we must try and remain inside our homes. Then certainly we must remain inside our home. Why? It is ultimately aimed for the betterment of the country at large. We know that there is no treatment available for COVID corona. We know that the virus is there and shall remain there till when no one knows. It is not that we will make DDT and we will spray it, mosquitoes will die, there will be no malaria. Theoretically, we can eradicate malaria. But theoretically, there is no way to eradicate corona. So we find that whatever way has been suggested, we follow it. That is our duty, fundamental duty. I may have my various reservations, but they are there for academic discussions. None should take me wrongly. I say that once a decision has been taken by the government, I can speak against it, but that doesn't mean that I am not going to follow it. I must follow it, howsoever wrong or right it may be. If it's order by the authority which we have given them, we need to follow. This is not the time when we come out on roads and spread the virus. So therefore I say that that is the meaning of fundamental duty. We may be against an idea, but that doesn't mean that we are going to oppose it in such situation. When there is threat, when a foreign country has attacked, and we say that no, we don't want any fight to take place between India and Nepal. So in this fight, I am not going to help the government of India, or I am going to speak against it. No, none will be a bigger fool and anti-national than me. So I will not do it, you will not do it, none should do it. That is what I say. Then the slide is there, I think, or it is not there regarding the fundamental duties. I am reading it out. I am unable to see it on my screen. So the next fundamental duty is to promote harmony and the spirit of common brotherhood amongst all the people of India, transcending religious, linguistic, and regional or sectional diversities, to renounce practices derogatory to the dignity of women. So these fundamental duties are certainly reciprocating to the fundamental rights which are there enshrined in our constitution, to value and preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture. Certainly, these are the values which are known as Indian values. And I really sometimes feel sad when we call these values to be associated with religion. We find that Haldi and Mehndi takes place in every religious community of India. If they are residing in a particular part of India, we find that these are ceremonies which take place in every community, in every religious community. We find that respecting the elders and considering the father to be the head of the family and mother to be the motherly figure is there again, which is there in the Indian values. Person living in a joint family is considered to be with a respectable vision that these people live together, they stay together, they eat together. And a person who leaves the family and wants to start a nuclear family is questioned by the others. क्या बात हो गई, घर क्यों छोड़ दिया तुमने? That is an Indian value which I feel. So it is there in almost every religious sect without any discrimination. These are Indian values which we should respect. Then it says that to protect and improve the natural environment, including forests, lakes, rivers, wildlife, and to have compassion for living creatures. Very much relevant in today's time. We find that dogs were dying, they were not having food to eat. And there was campaign by one national news channel to collect food to give these stray dogs, stray animals. When human beings are finding scarcity of food, we must think about food for these animals who cannot speak. That is what meant by this fundamental duty, to develop the scientific temper, humanism, and the spirit of inquiry and reform. So this is my fundamental duty which I was performing. When I was conducting inquiry, I was analyzing what has been done by the government, what has been the conduct of the judiciary in the past days, what I expect the judiciary to function, because judiciary is none. They have been elected, selected, appointed by we the people of India. They are paid out of the money which we people collect by way of tax. They are answerable and accountable to each one of us. None should feel by the very word that there is word associated supreme. It is prefixed at supreme. Supreme doesn't mean that you are higher than the citizens of the nation. As Justice V.R. Krishna Iyer said, that we are the first servants of the citizens of India. We, the justices in the Supreme Court of India, are the first servant. We are not the last servant. We are the first servants. And we are the last one to get the benefits. We are the first to serve and last to get. So this is not happening. Many places we find that they means it includes all the three parts of the institutions of instruments of the democracy. We do not discuss anything and we raise our salaries ourselves. We raise our perks ourselves. No extensive discussions take place. And when the dearness allowance is to be increased, often we find that we will give it to those who are working, the pensioners will not get it. And due to COVID, there is going to be no increase in dearness allowance for coming 1.5 years. Till year 2022, there is going to be no hike in dearness allowance. Don't you think that the government should have said that if we are not going to raise the dearness allowance, Mehengai Bhatta, then certainly there is not going to be any increase in the Mehengai. So there will be no price hike, and therefore we ensure that there will be no price hike, and therefore no problem, there will be no increase in salary also. But no, that has not happened. So I am under the spirit of inquiring this, and I am speaking about it. And scientific temper is very much required in today's time, because without following the scientific temper, we will not be in a position to fight out corona. To safeguard public property and to adjure violence. This is something which is very sad, and I am apprehending that if joblessness is going to increase, if there will be crores of unemployed people, the next threat which may take place is public property may be damaged, looting may take place, and therefore people must remember that this is their public duty, not to get into all such things, to strive towards excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity. And it is something to do with the parents and guardians to provide opportunities for education of his child or ward. And these are the fundamental duties. I have already gone 7 minutes, exceeded my time limit. So these are the two things which were expected me to speak upon, the constitutional obligation. Is it anything else? I speak to the organizers that is there anything which you want me to say or address? Some issue which I have left.
Thank you so much, sir. This is Neha Singh from SGND Khalsa College. And first of all, I would like to thank you so much for delivering a beautiful lecture. And also, it's very commendable to see that how you are able to intertwine the problems and link it with the values and how it ought to be. Right. Sir, you also discussed and stressed a lot upon the values of the Indian Constitution. Values as the essence of the Indian Constitution, and therein you discussed about the rights, you discussed about the duties and the responsibilities of the citizens. However, it provoked a lot many questions amongst the participants, sir. So I would be presenting before you a few questions that were very common amongst participants. The first question is that why are people losing faith in the government and government institutions, and how do you suggest a remedy for it?
Hello.
Hello. Am I audible, sir? So the question is that why are people losing faith in government and government institutions as of now, and what are the remedies that you intend to suggest?
Yeah, I somehow do not acknowledge that we are losing faith. You have arrived at a conclusion. I don't know what is the basis of arriving at this conclusion. The faith have been shaken for various reasons, because these are time of test. We find that many decisions which are being taken, time is proving them to be incorrect. I will not say that these decisions are wrong. These decisions are somewhere incorrect. And that may be one of the reasons, and the government is finding it is finding unable to meet out those expectations of the public. My view is that I find that it is lack of sensitivity on part of those people who are governing. It is more to do with that. Lack of a central command, more to say, like the laborers who are running a small 1-year-old child pulling his mother who is already dead at Muzaffarpur railway station, and those kind of stories have actually shaken us to the core. So that may be a reason why you are saying this. I feel that in such times of test, sometimes we do feel, but see, again, the constitutional responsibilities and the duties say that we must let not our faith to shake. Whatever is being stated, whatever is being said by the government, we must try and abide by that, because some good will follow. Like in lockdown, we have stayed inside. At least the number of patients has not increased to that high number. Now that we are outside, certainly it is going to rise. So again, it is a question which is being raised upon the decision whether going into lockdown at that appropriate time, the way we went into it, and now the way we are coming out of it. Certainly something to do with the decisions which are being taken. But we should have patience and do not lose our trust, because that is actually what is required at the present time.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. There is the other question that has been raised is that when we are talking about rights, we also talk about the dignity of the citizens. So rights and the dignity of the citizens are interconnected. So when it comes, when one reads about police brutality on innocent people, don't you think that judiciary is completely biased to protecting the executive branch of the government?
That was actually the reason why we found that these 15 jurists wrote that strong letter.
Right.
Because the day when this petition was denied to be heard by stating that we are not going to interfere in the decisions of executive, I remember one of the journalists who was being summoned at a police station in Mumbai, and that petition was considered to be of very urgent nature. And we found that that urgent petition was heard. Again, some issue took place in the Supreme Court, and we found that on Sunday, the episode about which I spoke, the Supreme Court met on Sunday. Suddenly, the Chief Justice of India not only came himself on the bench, on the dais, but he also called two other fellow judges, his brother judges, and all the three sat. And then the Attorney General was called, and the hearing took place. So it had never happened in the judicial history of India, but it happened. So these are times of test. Every organization is being tested. History is being written. After a few years, we find, like, there is a famous saying which says that we asked you to kneel down, but you crawled. हमने आपको घुटनों पर बैठने के लिए कहा था, आपने तो जमीन में लोट लगा दी. ऐसा हुआ था इमरजेंसी के जमाने में, जब जबलपुर एडीएम का जो केस हुआ था. That case was actually a very sad part in the history of India. Fundamental rights, they were given. So your concern is very genuine, very justified. But I feel that still that is the dynamics of Indian democracy. We find that very soon these 15 people rose and they compelled the Supreme Court to hear the plight, take suo motu cognizance and issue the directions which are very much required. There is another sad episode which has taken place, if you know, in Gujarat. The judiciary was playing a very proactive role in controlling corona there, particularly in the city of Ahmedabad. It was issuing directions after directions, consulting scientists. It was saying that we will go and visit the government hospitals any moment. The corona special hospitals, we will go and we will visit the complaints which we are receiving. Now again, something very sad took place. Those judges who are heading the benches, suddenly they have been removed and some new judges have come. I only pray to God Almighty that the new judges pass orders in much more proactive manners, better than what was being done by the earlier judges. The institution should function, not the persons. Who is sitting on the bench is not very important. The institution as a whole must not forget the cause for which they are there, for which they have been appointed, and they are answerable toward the public. History is going to take their names in good or bad. It is for them to decide that in what
Constitution, what can be done if fundamental rights are violated by the head of the state?
none is above the Constitution, madam. None. That is the reason why I say that when the Supreme Court denies to perform its duties and denies to accept, see, there have been certain. I will again quote an example. The decision of imposing Notbandi. That decision was taken. None knows how the decision was taken place. I speak it with utmost responsibility. Various RTIs have been filed, and the constitutional authority of imposing that decision in the manner it was imposed has been questioned, and that petition is pending. Decision is awaited. Decision regarding abolition of Article 370 in Kashmir. The constitutionality of that question has been raised. That petition is pending. Therefore, I raise this question that one gentleman, that journalist, his petition was not only heard, but various relief which he was seeking were granted, and the way the petition, the urgency was being accepted. There are hundreds of urgent matters which we people crave before the judiciary every day. And at times we are not heard. A
Right.
common man who is not getting food, isn't that the most urgent matter which should be heard? How can food digest if I am the justice who has the power to enforce and to ensure that everybody gets food? And in spite of me not able to deliver that, how can I digest one piece of chapati in my mouth? I should not. I don't have that authority. Until unless every person in my country gets food to eat, I should be the last one to eat, not the first one to eat. That is what
That's
I
very
think. That
that's
is my
true, sir.
expectation.
True, sir. Sir, this is the second last question that I am putting up before you. You discussed about free press in your talk, and you discussed that how the free press is the platform for delivering justice. But then in today's era, we see that how hate mongering is very much popular by certain news channels. So, what do you have to speak about it?
See, press has been receiving privileges from the government. Privileges in form of plots for establishing their printing presses free of cost or at a very negligible price. Most of the press houses are now into business. They are having huge stakes in various kinds of businesses. And the problem is that the press is no longer free. And how we can ensure that the press is free? The press is now being run by corporate houses, wherein the press originally was being run by the public at large. Only public funding, the press established by the public themselves, who purchase newspapers or who view the programs on television, the television programs are being run on the basis of the income which they earn from advertisements. And it is not the income, it is the profit which they want to earn. And therefore, we find that the head of one business, one media house was in Tihad, and the kind of fixing which came on camera. And then another business house was there who was wanting to bribe the gentleman. All those miserable stories are there. And then the very first thing which should be ensured in democracy is right to question. Anybody who questions the government, if he is tagged with being Deshdrohi or not being Deshbhakt, nationalism coming into my President of India, whom we respect the most. He is there for us. We are not there for him. He is there for us.
Right, sir. Extending with your right to question idea, the last question of the day is, sir, that most citizens in India aren't aware about the fundamental rights. They aren't aware about the laws. So, how do you suggest that awareness should be created amongst them?
Neha, what I feel is that rights we Indians are very much aware of, but yes, certainly those poor people who are not educated and those people who are more than 40 crores in this nation, what I feel is they certainly do not know what their rights are. They feel ki ab now this is something which has been decided by Almighty. So this is our fate. Kismat hai. Kya kar sakte hain? So they take it as it is. And therefore we find that the responsibility comes on people like us. And we should speak more and more in public.
Right. Thank you so much, sir, for delivering a beautiful lecture.